Harley's in a catch-22. They have to. They cannot put out a vehicle that does not meet EPA standards. And yes, they could go to a water-cooled engine and then it wouldn't have the heat problems. But who of you watching this video want a fully water-cooled engine? Welcome to the fourth video in this multi-part series on why and how to cool down your twin cam and Milwaukee 8 engine. Today we're going to be talking about the difference between felt heat and actual heat. Felt heat is the heat that the passenger and the rider feels. Actual heat is the actual temperature of the engine and the primary and the oil tank and all that. So those are two different things, and we're going to address both of those. We primarily focus on reducing the actual heat, because if you reduce the actual heat of the engine, you're doing your engine a favor. It's going to run stronger, it's going to last longer, and you're reducing the amount of heat that you will feel as a rider or passenger, because less heat is radiating from the engine. We do have some things that we do to reduce felt heat, but our primary focus is reducing the actual heat, because that will result in less felt heat and you have a better running engine. So in the last video we talked about why they run so hot. We talked about the oil jets that shoot up oil on the pistons. What we didn't talk about is all the EPA things that Harley has to do. And we've actually had some comments in our recent videos about, oh, Harley's making, horrible design, motorcycles because they run so hot. Harley's in a catch-22. They have to. They cannot put out a vehicle that does not meet EPA standards. And yes, they could go to a water-cooled engine and then it wouldn't have the heat problems. But who of you watching this video want a fully water-cooled engine? People want a Harley that has the traditional look and sound. And Harley has a problem, because to deliver that traditional look and sound, they have to keep it looking like this right here, but they also have to meet EPA standards. And it just puts them in a catch-22, hard for them to do. So what are some of the EPA standards that are making these engines run hotter? One of them is the noise. A lot of people think on noise it's only the exhaust. The EPA also measures the amount of noise that the intake is making. So you see that in recent years, the last 10, 12 years, Harley has fully enclosed the air box. The intake is fully enclosed. And they did that to quiet down the amount of noise that the intake makes, sucking the air in. And of course they have the baffled exhaust. Well, that baffled exhaust and that baffled intake create a tremendous amount of heat. The exhaust is so plugged up that it's generating extra heat because the engine is working against that exhaust, and then that enclosed air box just becomes like a cook box, sort of like this building we're in right now, just heating up the air that's going into the engine. Another EPA mandated issue is that it's required to put the hot, oily, oxygen depleted air back into the intake coming out of the crankcase ventilation, and that just heats up the engine even more. Another EPA requirement on Harley is the catalytic converter. Catalytic converter does not really heat up the engine that much, but the amount of heat radiating from the catalytic converter is significant. Another thing that the EPA requires of Harley is EPA cams, is what they're commonly known as. They're a cam that's not designed for performance. They're a cam that's designed to actually generate more heat so that it can help burn off all the pollutants. Now, there is a lot of folks out there that spend a lot of money on all kind of protective gear and all kind of doodads and little shields to put on the bike to keep them from feeling the heat coming off of the bike. Better than spending all the money on all that protective gear and different kind of shields, better to actually reduce the heat of the bike. If you reduce the heat of the engine, then you don't have to protect yourself from that 300, 310, 320 degree heat radiating out. Another little side note, because we're talking about twin cams and M8s. The M8s, almost everyone you talk to will tell you that their M8 runs cooler than their twin cam ever ran. That's not true. It feels like it runs cooler. Harley did a very good job of reducing the amount of felt heat on a stock M8 versus a stock twin cam. Those engines are running almost the identical temperatures. The actual engine is almost the identical. You take a Heritage Softail 2014, 2016, and you take a Heritage Softail 2018, 2019, and when you measure the heat of the engine, it'll be within 5 or 10 degrees. All the same conditions, they'll be within 5, 10 degrees the same. But the M8 will feel much cooler because Harley did a lot of work at keeping the heat away from the rider and the passenger on the M8 models. But the engine is still running just as hot, which is not good for it. We're almost to the part in the multi-part series where we talk about how to cool it down. We just have a couple more whys to cool it down. We're going to be talking about what is our target temperature, what temperature do we want to cool it down to, and why do we want to cool it down to that target temperature. And then we're going to get into how you can cool down your twin cam in Milwaukee 8. So if you found this video useful, found it interesting, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. If you haven't subscribed to our channel already, please do so, and we would really appreciate it. You all ride safe out there.